Welcome in to the DRF College Sports Podcast. It does deserve a round of applause. That 30-second countdown. I think I was going to make something new for it, but I said let's not and just stick with 30 seconds.
I like that. I fell asleep around 15, got a quick power nap in, popped up around 5, and now I'm ready to go.
I got a quick power nap in last night. I did fall asleep before the ending of Davidson, Michigan State.
Was it a power nap or did you sleep through the night?
I slept through the night.
Okay,
it was a power nap.
So you slept last night. All right.
Yeah. Yep. But apparently that game was really good. After a day of, we'll do a quick round of 64 recap. We'll breaking down the round of 32 games today, and then tomorrow, some fishy lines, some lines we like. But first, we'll get started with a quick round of 64 recap. Yesterday wasn't great games. Maybe we were spoiled off of Thursday.
I think people got kind of thrown off by the schedule where like a lot of the top seeds played really early in the day, and in the Ohio State Loyola Chicago game wasn't very good. So then people were like, wow, what a tough day. But like when the actual action heated up later in the evening, I thought it was decent. Thought it was fairly competitive with some of those games. Wisconsin got a scare from Colgate. Illinois Chattanooga was a really fun watch. My mocks ended up losing, but like what Illinois is doing, and I kind of think Illinois Houston is going to be a more entertaining game than what Chattanooga Houston will be. So it's one of those things where sometimes you're looking for upsets, but then when they don't happen, the next game turns out to be a more entertaining one when you don't actually have the upset come to fruition.
Yeah, a lot of upsets were predicted throughout. A lot of 13 seeds were predicted to take down the 4 seeds, Vermont to take down Arkansas, Chattanooga to take down Illinois, Akron at least to cover the 13.5-point spread against UCLA. And I'm blanking on the fourth.
South Dakota State over Providence might have been the most popular one.
Yes. A lot of those got a lot of popular play from the public. I'm trying to find the exact numbers here.
Including me, but none of it happened.
0-4 straight up. They did go 2-2 against the spread. 56% of bets were on Chattanooga +8 and 57% were on Akron +13.5. I don't think I've ever seen that much public action on underdogs as a 13 seed since I've been following March Madness from like a betting perspective. Granted, that's a very small sample, but
yeah, it was an interesting slate of games. Certainly some upsets. I think the ones that kind of stand out, obviously St. Peter's over Kentucky.
That was a big one.
Yeah, I'd say that was probably a big one. So that was the one that stood out the most. And then the other one that's a little under the radar maybe is Richmond over Iowa. I think Iowa was a team. Some people had winning it all. Some people had it in the Final Four. You had Richmond winning, a very good pick there. If you had that in bracket pools or anything else, pretty solid. But also, they're like 10-point dogs. So if you got that money line, that's I don't know what you're doing over there, but that's a pretty good pick.
I'm so hyped about the Richmond win. Like my bracket looks terrible. It's absolutely abysmal. But I picked Richmond to beat Iowa, and that's one of those picks that you're just going to like never until next March Madness, you're going to talk about to your friends. I had Richmond beating Iowa.
That was a good one. That was, yeah, you can't be too upset about that pick. That's for sure.
It's also, I think it's worth mentioning that even the best of the best when it comes to college basketball coverage, it's really hard to pick a bracket. So if your bracket is busted, it's completely fine. John Rothstein had Kentucky and Iowa in the national championship. He didn't make it out, not even the first weekend, the first day.
I understand the logic there. You got a hot Iowa team playing pretty well, but the 5 seed was a tough draw for them. But they were a popular pick. Kentucky, I'm pretty shocked they lost that game. There's a new Twitter account that I've fallen in love with. I think it's just called Shot Quality. And yeah, so shot
analytics.
Underscore quality. So I believe what they do is they look at like the quality of shots taken. And that includes like who's taking the shot where. So it's like if Kofi Coburn's posting up would be different than like if I posted someone up, right? So
yeah, because yours is probably a better quality shot.
Right, because I'm pretty lethal there with the footwork. Kofi just relies on pure force, which is not my style. No. But it's pretty fun to look at. And I think based on the data they had, they said that like typically with the shot selection, St. Peter's would have won that game 2% of the time. Like they were hitting a bunch of shots that weren't great, where Kentucky was probably missing some quality looks. But that's kind of why March is so fun, right? Is I think if that game happens in November, I don't know if it's within 20.
I think if that game happens an hour later, I don't think that game's within 20. Like
You think there would have been too tired?
Yeah, exactly. No, just everything happened perfectly for St. Peter's. It was very reminiscent of UMBC against UVA a couple years ago, where UMBC literally hit everything and couldn't miss, and UVA just couldn't get anything going offensively. Very reminiscent. And people are calling this the biggest upset in college basketball history. Do you agree with that?
I don't know. I mean, it's certainly a major early round upset. Like the UVA UMBC one, UVA was out without DeAndre Hunter, who turned out to be a lottery pick. And the next season obviously played a pretty huge role when they won the national title in that game. So like that's one that if you take a little context into it, that doesn't help. That game was tied at halftime. I know some people were like, "Oh, that was blew them out from start to finish." It's like that's not really true. They pulled away late. So I think that one stands out a little bit though because of the final margin where they beat them by 20.
Yeah,
and there was a 16 and a 1. But this was a huge one. Like St. Peter's doesn't have nearly the resources or the program history. Kentucky is a blue blood, obviously. So kind of a shocking result there. But you also had a Kentucky team that at times this year had maybe been a little bit vulnerable. They were kind of struggled in their last game in the SEC tournament. And St. Peter's got a little bit lucky, right? They made a bunch of shots they probably don't usually make.
Yeah, and that kid off the bench, lethal. I don't even remember his name, but he did not look like a basketball player.
Lethal. I forget exactly who they had. They had the one kid, Doug Edert, I think it is.
Yep, that's him, Doug.
Had like the stat. He dropped 20, like
off the bench.
Yeah, I don't think most people were expecting him to he was 2 for 2 from 3, 8 of 8 from the free throw line. I think his threes were either at the end of regulation or in OT. Like they were huge makes. They shot 50%, over 50% from 3. They made 85% of their free throws. Like a lot of things went very right for that team.
Yeah. Any other game from Thursday, Friday that you want to talk about that really stood out to you? We're going to have a special guest, Gino, on the podcast, talk a little USC Miami, and then break down into round of 32. But anything you want to touch on?
I'd like to quickly talk about how your favorite conference, the Mountain West, is a bunch of frauds.
All right. I knew this was coming. A terrible showing for my Mountain West guys. Who was Wyoming lost in the first 4. Colorado State got our Thursday going after blowing a 15-point lead. David Roddy and company were looking electric, but then Michigan decided to actually show up in the second half and ended up kind of destroying them in the second half. The size mismatch, Colorado State just couldn't keep up with them for a full 40 minutes, which is a real bummer. And then Boise State looked terrible in the first half, had a comeback, slowly chipped away against Memphis, but just was never enough. That deficit was just too large. Mm-hmm. San Diego State blew another lead.
That was a horrible loss.
Mountain West just don't know how to hold a lead. And I think that's all 4.
Yeah, that was tough. I figured they'd at least get 1 or 2 into the next round. I don't know how well the bracket set up for them to make like a deep run, but I was surprised at how poorly those showings were. I thought 1 or 2 teams might have like a competitive showing. I thought Boise State, Gonzaga could have been interesting. I thought San Diego State, Kansas could have been interesting. I don't think Kansas Creighton's going to be interesting. That was San Diego State to me is just a better team.
Creighton, it's a real bummer what's happened to them. Ryan Nebhard's out, their star guard, who's kind of their steadying force. And then Kalkbrenner, I believe is how you pronounce his name, the center, 7-foot center, went out late in the San Diego State game. He's gone. He's done for the rest of the tournament. So now 2 key contributors for the Blue Jays are out, and now they're facing off against Kansas. So that's a terrible, terrible draw for them.
It's not great.
It's not good. Not good.
So that was one of the big things that stood out. I was trying to see. Oh, the other one that stood out is you talked about how you were sad that Murray State and San Francisco had to play each other. Yeah. I'm also still sad they had to play each other, but kind of glad they did because that game was sweet.
Yeah, that game was a lot of fun. That was, I think, out of all the games that like were billed as these fantastic showdowns coming into it, that one was kind of under the radar, but a lot of people were billing it as a great mid-major showdown.
Sure.
And it lived up to it. And I think it was probably one of the best ones to live up to the billing. Providence, South Dakota State didn't live up to it. South Dakota State, one of the best effective field goal, it's the best effective field goal percentage in the nation, one of the best three-point shooting teams in the nation, and they just didn't really hit a lot of their shots. Providence, maybe they're also good. Maybe it's not just luck. Maybe they're good.
Yeah, and then, of course, they don't have to play Iowa because they're still really lucky. And the game was on St. Patrick's Day, which a lot of people aren't talking enough about.
Notre Dame, luck of the Irish. They continue their run after dismantling Alabama.
Alabama's in disarray. I feel like Notre Dame might be in for a kind of a rude awakening against Texas Tech on Sunday.
Yeah, Texas Tech did what it wanted to against Montana State.
Just a really complete basketball team in that region. So interesting, because it felt like there was a little bit of chaos on Thursday, but looking at the bracket, it's really not that chaotic after some pretty, I would say, some reasonably chalky Friday results.
Yeah, chalky Friday, a fairly chalky Thursday too. I think we just kind of get fed up with the St. Peter's win against Kentucky. So now we move from there into Saturday's slate of games on the round of 32, kicking things off today in just a few hours. We got Baylor, UNC. I think UNC is kind of in for a rude awakening here against Baylor. Baylor showed that granted, it was against a Norfolk State team that's not very good, but I don't think UNC is very good either. However, they have come on late really well, including the win against Duke.
They've definitely been better of late. I think the Marquette one's a little bit of an outlier, right, where they won by 30 points.
Yeah, that was just Marquette being – I think – here's a hot take. Sorry to interrupt you, but I was thinking this as I was watching UNC Marquette. Do we overvalue Shaka Smart's marchability?
I think he's like a fine coach. They just like, this is his first year. I think they exceeded expectations, maybe a little bit better than people expected, but he hasn't actually done anything impressive in the tournament since VCU went to a Final Four in 2011.
So Baylor, UNC, do you think Baylor kind of blows them out?
I think Baylor's a better team. North Carolina's been good. I think the thing that scares me is like Caleb Love seems to be kind of hit or miss, and he hit 6 threes. He was 6 of 13 from 3 against Marquette. I don't know if you can count on him to bang 6 threes again. Brady Manick was awesome, which he's kind of been over the last little bit. I mean, they weren't unbelievable from 3 as a team. They were like 37%, which is pretty good, but it's not like, oh, wow, they shot 50% or whatever. From 2, they were fantastic. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like Baylor's a little bit better built to hang with a team that's trying to grab a bunch of offensive rebounds. It feels like, Baylor does that really well. They can rebound at a decent ability. They tend to get their own fair share of offensive boards. It feels like a game that I think Baylor might be better suited to win.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about Kansas Creighton. Creighton without 2 of their best players, 2 of their offensive guys, 2 of their biggest contributors. They play a Kansas team that looks poised to make a deep run this March. I have Kansas in my Final Four. I think Kansas mops the floor with Creighton.
Yeah, I think they're a better team. Spread's pretty high. It's like 11 or 12, but
last time I checked 11.5.
It just feels like one that they might get overwhelmed because they were getting overwhelmed for a lot of the game against San Diego State.
Yeah, they were.
It just feels like that's their peak. Maybe they cover, but I don't think it'll be. I think the outcome here might be like if they're able to battle within 9, not if they're able to like pull an upset.
So St. Mary's plays UCLA. I really like St. Mary's. I have St. Mary's in my Final Four. Call me crazy all you want. And we'll do a recap of our Final Four. Our Final Four is kind of hilarious. I went back and re-listened to the end of the podcast where we did like quick picks.
Yeah.
Just wait till we get to that. But so St. Mary's plays UCLA today. St. Mary's is a 2.5-point dog. What do you like in this game?
I like UCLA a lot. I think it is a good matchup. St. Mary's has a really good defense, but they haven't gone up against, outside of Gonzaga, which is the best offense in the country. They haven't gone up against like the best per KenPom, like most efficient offenses in college basketball all that much. They have one where they played Colorado State, which is a top 25 offense. They lost that game by 16. They went 1-2 against Gonzaga, which is honestly pretty good. But you got a UCLA team that's 14th in offensive efficiency right now. To me, that seems like a good matchup. Santa Clara was able to play St. Mary's pretty competitively and pick up a win. They're 31st in offensive efficiency. BYU, I think, split with them, and they're 47th. Like, I just feel like they haven't gone up against elite offenses all that consistently. And when they have, they've either been competitive or had some of these losses. I just think UCLA is ready for that spot, given what they can do offensively. And I think people are going to overreact to what happened against Akron.
I don't think I'm going to overreact. I think UCLA is kind of overrated.
I mean, do you think they're that rated right now? They're like a 4 seed that they're like 11th in Ken Palm. I don't know. I
And then
feel like
they're only 2.5 point favorites against St. Mary's. I get what you're saying. I just think a lot of people are expecting them to go on this March run like they did last year as an 11 seed when they won their first 4 game and end up in the Final Four. I don't think UCLA is a better team than St. Mary's. I really like St. Mary's clearly because I have them in my Final Four. And yeah, they haven't played a lot of great offensive teams, but I think the WCC is also just a different beast. And when they played Gonzaga, they split with them in the regular season. And then in the WCC championship game, the final score is a little misleading, but they played them tight up until like the final 5 minutes. They were in a real spot to win that game. And I think St. Mary's is a legitimate team that not enough people are giving the time of day. I think they can win this game by 5, 6, 7 in kind of a pretty dominant fashion.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how this one goes. I think this might be the game of the day in terms of most competitive ones. I think UCLA's got it in them. I kind of like the spot where I think people will be on St. Mary's, but yeah, I understand the logic for St. Mary's and UCLA. Look at some of their losses have come against some of the better defensive teams in the country. It's hard to compare a little bit with some of those stats, right? Because Gonzaga and Arizona feel pretty different than St. Mary's, in my opinion. Yeah. I think they're probably a step above, a tier above.
Scary thing now that I'm seeing this, 77% of the bets are on St. Mary's plus 2.5. We've kind of lived and died, at least Bennett has, by fading the public this year. He didn't do it in the first round, and it bit him in the butt. And now here I am backing the public dog, and I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, it feels like it could be a nice spot for UCLA to bounce back. But again, they've been kind of inconsistent this year. I just feel like it's a decent matchup for them. I like what they're doing. I think they'll play better and shoot the ball better. They weren't all that impressive shooting the ball from 2 or from 3 against Akron. Still found a way to win, which I think is a decent sign.
And then moving on in this same region, Murray State, St. Peter's. I'm afraid the Cinderella shoe may not fit anymore as Murray State plays St. Peter's. Quick thoughts before we get Gino on here.
I think Murray State is built to potentially make a Final Four run. I think the only interesting thing in this game, well, they don't have to play. They get to play St. Peter's and instead of what it was going to be Kentucky. So I think that helps them. But like, I think they're a really good team. They're 31-2. They've been really solid all year. Their losses to East Tennessee State was in November, and then they lost to Auburn. But they got a win over Chattanooga. They beaten Memphis. Like they're a really good basketball team. And getting through San Francisco was huge. I think the only issue here is that was an emotional overtime game. You're going against St. Peter's, which is maybe an emotional letdown compared to Kentucky. I imagine the players are having internally some thoughts of like, hey, we're going to cruise to the Sweet 16. So fighting those back to win is going to be important. But I think they can win that one. Then you're looking at Texas or Purdue, which I think is a game they could hang in. And then like whether it's Baylor, or St. Mary's, or UCLA, I think they can hang in that one too potentially. So there's some Final Four potential for this team.
All right. Well, with that hot take, hot off the presses, we're welcoming Gino from the It's Me, Gino B. That always messes me up. Podcast. How are you doing, Gino?
Doing well, buddy. Very nice to be here with both of you guys. What a fun weekend, and damn, what a crazy couple days, right? I mean, we definitely got the madness right off the bat. Felt like Thursday maybe had a couple more of the bigger upsets. Yesterday, every close game I was on the wrong side of. Just like every one of those that was like down the stretch that you look back at, and it's like, oh, those teams are just finding ways to lose. Obviously, I'm a USC fan, so that was a tough one for me yesterday when you play so poorly for the first half, and then you come back and like every time they just sort of put together like a 5-minute stretch where they played well, They made a run, and it looked like they came back. And I think down the stretch, they had a 90% free throw shooter, Dixon Waters, who had the best game of his life. He steps to the free throw line on the front end of a 1-and-1. He hadn't missed a free throw all night, and they're down 1 point, and he misses the front end of a free throw. And then the ball goes out of bounds, and it looked like it was going to go to USC, and it went the other way, and then they hit a 3. So it was like, oh, my gosh, every single bounce ended up going the opposite way. But you know what? Today's a new day. We got 8 games to play today, and I'm feeling a little creepy and crawly with those Richmond Spiders. I think we get a little spidery today.
I'm very glad Gino brought up the Richmond Spiders because that was where we were going next for this Saturday breakdown. And I knew when he came on, we would be able to talk Richmond because Gino and I both, not to throw Bennett under the bus here, Gino and I both were on Richmond to beat Iowa, not just to cover. We were on them money line. Bennett over here was a Hawkeyes believer. Was all in on Iowa. He said Keegan Murray should run for president. He would.
None of that is accurate.
But
that one for me was just totally a fade because Iowa was so hot. And it wasn't even as much of like a game breakdown specifically. Like I was a good team. I thought they would be capable of winning 3 or 4 games, but I just knew defensively they were going to have a lapse or two coming up. And when they did, would they be able to do enough on the offensive end? And that's where they just struggled. This Richmond team, they're so kind of fun when you know the story of this team, right? How they brought everybody back from last year. They have 11 guys on their team that have gotten some minutes this year, and 7 of them are seniors. And I think 5 of them are fifth-year seniors or more than that. The really cool story is the big man, Grant Golden, who I think it was 6 years ago, he collapsed on the court. And following that, he had a heart procedure, and then they gave him a medical red shirt, and then he had 4 years of playing, and he finally got to the tournament. This team was supposed to be a lot better this year, too. They kind of struggled all throughout the year, and then they just completely locked down in their last 5 games. It was like they looked around at each other and said, hey, look, we don't want to waste this year that we all came back here for. And they started playing defense, which it didn't make sense why they were so poor defensively throughout a lot of the year. And it must have just been an effort thing. I don't know. In my head, I'm thinking some of these guys come back to school and they probably have 1 or 2 classes. They're just not doing a whole lot, right? You're probably just not all that focused in what's going on. Sure enough, last 5 games, they are shooting 23 plus free throw attempts per game. And they're shooting 78% from the free throw line. They're only turning the ball over just over nine times a game. Their opponents are turning it over 11 plus times a game. They're not fouling at all. Their opponents are only shooting 13 free throw attempts compared to their 23. Their opponents are only shooting 41% from the field, 26% from 3. And you know what's really cool, what I like about in the last stretch of games they played Iowa and Davidson, who are 2 of the top 11 offenses in the country, but then they also played Dayton, who's the number 4 defense in the country. So they've literally played teams, completely different styles, opposite spectrums, and they've been able to get the job done against all of them. You play Providence today, a team that was number 1 on the luck metrics on KenPom. And when you dig into, Providence and some of their efforts, so they had 3 wins this year in overtime. They won the Big East because their schedule had 3 games that got canceled. Those 3 games were at Seton Hall, at Creighton, and versus UConn. Those aren't 3 easy games. 2 road games and then a game at home against UConn where you legitimately could have lost 2 of the 3, maybe even all 3, depending on the way the balls bounce there. So I think it's a great matchup. Liking Richmond, not that high on Providence. They played well against South Dakota State, but you know what? South Dakota State didn't shoot well, and it felt like that was sort of the moment for them. And I think some of these smaller mid-major teams, what's hurting them is social media, Twitter stuff. And Providence saw everybody picking South Dakota State. Their players even mentioned that after the game. They said, we're the Big East champs, and we saw everybody picking this South Dakota State team. We kind of had a little chip on our shoulder. So in this information age, right now, everybody sees everything, and everyone's got a little chip.
100%. Providence is probably also now seeing this specific podcast where we're talking about Richmond going to win this game, but
we're putting it up in the locker room on the bulletin board right there. Gino, I'm coming after that. Gino and Jack.
Yep.
I thought it was interesting too, where Richmond didn't even shoot the ball all that well against Iowa. So it wasn't like they played out of their mind to win that game. I think they've got a chance to hit some more shots against Providence. Richmond, you mentioned they don't turn the ball over. Providence, not very good at forcing turnovers. In that case, you're probably getting a lot of shots up. And if the team's going to hit some more shots, you would think they did last game. It feels like a pretty good opportunity for Richmond to maybe push 70, 80 points and find a way to win for sure.
The template is there for them, right? From a matchup perspective now, it really does fit. And Providence was just one of those teams that maybe I'm wrong and maybe they win today, but I really did want to attack them early in the bracket because I thought they were just a little bit overvalued based on where they were seated and throughout a lot of what happened through their year. So yeah, I mean, it shows you right off the bat with on both sides, right? With Richmond only being a 2.5 to 3 point underdog here. And in both of Providence games, they were a 2 and a 3 point favorite against a 13 and now a 12 seed. So right. They're not exactly some overpowering 4 seed.
Well, Bennett, you mentioned not a lot of turnovers, a lot of shots getting up. What do you feel about the over-under here? What do you feel about the total?
I think it's a spot where maybe you look at the over. I think it could be maybe more of a shootout than some people are expecting. That would probably be my lean just because I think both teams are capable of scoring. And I feel like Richmond especially, can score more than they did last game or at least shoot the ball a little bit better. And if you have a team that's not turning it over, a team that's not forcing a ton, you can get a bunch of shots up without a bunch of wasted possession. So yeah, I think the over could be a fun play there as well. And I think Richmond money line is very much in play.
Yeah.
Plus 135. I wish there was more value there. I'm upset that a 12 seed or whatever Richmond is.
Yeah.
Just doesn't have more of a plus 135. Come on. I want something better. I'm greedy.
It's funny. We love being able to watch these teams in these games, and we love having the the network and all the different options to watch all of them, but we don't like that everybody's got all the same information nowadays, right? Like everybody knows exactly what we know because we're all watching these same games. 10 years ago, nobody watched those games. They weren't on ESPNU, or we didn't get the bracket buster games. But now everybody knows South Dakota State or Colgate or these kind of sexy underdog teams that we wanted to just, especially you guys who watch a lot more of the mid-major stuff and kind of have your week-to-week shows and you cover it. Sometimes you feel like, oh, cool, I'm going to be waiting for this team to target. And then they open up and you're like, what? They're a 2-point underdog? How this is crazy.
And then you back the Mountain West wholeheartedly for the first weekend, and then they go 0-4, and you have a big old egg on your face. Before we wrap things up here, Gino, and thank you for coming on the podcast. What's your favorite play of this round of 32? Now that we have the whole schedule set in front of us.
Honestly, the couple that are today are probably the ones I like the most, and I'm glad we got a chance to talk about Richmond. The other one I think is a little bit sneaky. I was surprised that the Tennessee-Michigan game was that kind of close. I feel like Tennessee right now is kind of quiet, a little under the radar, like providing some value. You look at the stretch of games Tennessee has been in as of late. I think recently they are 16-2 in their last stretch of games. And in that stretch of games, they have just been really, really good. Defensively what you're going to get from them. But they've been shooting the ball a little bit better. Then on the flip side, you have a Michigan team. Michigan's last 11 games, they alternate win, loss, win, loss, win, loss. Every one of those games. We know that their point guard had some concussion issues. He was missing last time. If you just look at the shot quality metrics, shot quality actually thought that game was a lot closer than it might have looked on paper. So I'm leaning Tennessee in here. I think Tennessee, I thought they probably should have been closer to like a 10-point favorite. I think it's a good spot for Tennessee today against the Michigan team that I never have a problem playing in one spot, but you digged into their game a little bit too. And I just don't think it was quite as impressive as it looked for Michigan, who was really bad. I think every game for Michigan, you sort of are going to get one, just like I said, one good game, one bad game. They kind of do that inside of the games too. They sort of give you one good half, one bad half here. Yeah. So I think Tennessee with just a little bit more depth, proven, seasoned. I like them today a little bit. And then the other game, I've still just sort of been a little anti-Arkansas. I've been trying to attack Arkansas a little bit, and I think they're another one who sort of, you just look at the way that their betting lines were. And even in today's game, I think they're like a 6.5 point favorite. It's nothing all that crazy. New Mexico State had maybe the most impressive single game performance of any of the players so far. I mean, that was incredible what Allen was doing against UConn, hitting some of those shots, jumping around, like making his muscles. And just after the game, like, I'll tell you one thing, the guy's got NBA player swag. No doubt about it. Like, you hear him in his interviews afterwards, and he, it's always interesting when you have situations where, like, I'd love to see him and Note going at each other late. That could be awesome. Yeah. And Arkansas was one that, again, I kind of digged into, and you look at their really good stretch of games this year. Well, I think they had 2 overtime wins. They had a game where they won by 1. They had a game where they won by 2. They had a game at Florida where they were down by 6 with like 4 minutes to go. And Florida's point guard 3 consecutive times took 3 of like the most ill-advised shots. And then 3 times in a row, Arkansas came down and hit threes, and the whole game flipped. And they didn't have to play this year at Kentucky. They didn't have to play this year at Auburn. So now you look at their schedule and you go, oh, okay. They probably could have been, 3 or 4 more games if they lost, if things broke well. So they're a team in Providence. There were 2 teams that I targeted as wanting to fade early. So I'm sure they'll be in the Final Four this year. Guaranteed cakewalk right in.
Exactly. I'm glad you brought up Tennessee, because I have Tennessee in my national championship. I'm really high on the Vols, and I think at -6, I think they might maybe I'll spread that to -20 or something, just completely ill-advised.
You play an adjusted line and just boost the heck out of it and just hope that they're firing on all cylinders.
Yeah, exactly.
The guard combo that they have when Ziegler comes in, and then when they have like Ziegler and Chandler both in there, they can really do some things and give you some options. The big man that they brought in last time was really good early on. He just kept rolling and rolling and rolling. So yeah, I think they're just sort of like people that were really high on the SEC this year. You weren't thinking about them quite as much. You would hear a little bit more about Kentucky, who I think I had all the way winning the whole thing. You hear more about Auburn, but you didn't hear quite as much about Tennessee, who has one of the best defenses in the country and just continue to pick up wins and stack wins under the radar.
And sorry to interrupt you, Bennett, but this is a really important stat that needs to be shared. Rick Barnes is 9-0 against the spread after a game when his team made 13 or more threes. Okay. So and they made 14 last game.
14, so make it that's the number. If they would have been 12, we would be in some trouble.
It's a loss, but it's that magic 13.
A lot of people on national shows have been talking about Rick Barnes and his invincibility after the 13 threes. So I'm so glad you brought that up.
I was gonna say that's actually a line at most of the books around
yes, exactly.
That's and a half. That's the number, you pound it over or under there.
I do like that play though. I was going to say that Michigan shot 65% from 2 against Colorado State. It felt like at times they would just throw it to Hunter Dickinson. He was just taller than everyone against Colorado State. Tennessee's top 30 in block percentage and 2-point field goal percentage defense this year. So a tougher matchup for Michigan in the post.
Yep.
So Gino, thank you for coming on. If you want to plug yourself and where can people find everything? Because I know you're always doing something, whether it's a live stream, whether it's just everything under the sun.
Love working. Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter. It's me, Gino B. That's like the command center. That's where I post all the content. And when I'm doing live streams, podcasts, you can download anywhere you get your podcast. That's what G said. I do lots of stuff. I'm going to go on in just about 15, 20 minutes for Better Than Vegas. Jack's joined me on BTV for a lot of different streams during football season. We're going to preview today's slate, talk a little bit about the betting lines for each game, totals and everything. That's what's great, because now I can forget about my bracket. So at least I can attack each day by day now.
Yeah, exactly.
And anything in sports I'm covering. I'm a big fan of DRF. So what you'll see a lot of times is when I cover horse racing, I'll pop up those DRF past performances. I'll take people in a little dive through whatever racing card I'm looking at. But just like you guys love sports, so I'm very happy baseball is going to be coming back in a few weeks. Our focus in a week or two will kind of shift to the NBA for the final stretch of their season. And horse racing all the time. Heck, I cover Marvel and Star Wars stuff. So if there's ever a show or some Moon Knight's coming out soon, we'll be talking about that. So always happy to join you guys. And Bennett, it was very nice to meet you. I've listened to you and seen some of your stuff. You do a fantastic job. And Jack, it's been too long catching up. Thank you for hanging out with me on my show this week.
Of course, don't gas Bennett up too much. It'll go to his head, and we'll bring him back down after you leave.
Floating out of his box. We won't even see him anymore over there. Right?
I'm going to bring him down real hard with his record against his record straight up after the first round of the.
I'm going to make every game a best bet now that I'm feeling so confident.
It's great. Today, Bennett, round 1 is over. Today's round 2. You get a fresh start today. Just clean slate.
I'd much rather peak now, right? You don't want to peak in the first round.
Exactly.
All right. Thank you, Gino. Have a great rest of your day. And everyone tune into BTV Bets right after we finish up this stream and get even more betting insights.
Thanks so much, guys. Good luck. Good luck to everyone out there watching.
My stream froze a little bit there.
Oh, it looks like you gave him the full screen for a goodbye wave, which I liked.
Oops. This is the fun part about live streaming. My Wi-Fi sometimes does not
hang with you. Yeah,
yep.
That's tough.
So to bring you back down from that after being gassed up, you know what your record was for the first round of bets?
Straight up money line.
Straight up money line first round. We picked every game.
Pretty close to 500.
18 and 14.
That's elite.
You know what mine was?
You probably had 22.
21 and 11, baby.
21 and 11. Some of the straight up 18 and 14 is horrible, right? Because that includes 4 number 1 seeds demolishing 16 seeds.
Yeah.
Although Gonzaga gave me a sweat because DraftKings did that boost that was you got Gonzaga money line plus 100. Georgia State's in the game, and I'm sweating bullets over there, wondering if they weren't gonna win that one. But they did. Sunbelt looked good, but came up short.
Your best bets went 1 and 4. Your one win was an NIT Iona plus 7. My best.
I'm an NIT guy, man. It's the real tournament. So I'm 1-0 on bets on the best tournament in the country.
Well, you know what they say the NIT stands for, right?
Better than March Madness.
Not in tournament.
Yeah, I've heard that, but NIT Stu would disagree with you.
If JMU was in the NIT, I would be all over the NIT talking about it.
I'm better at betting the NIT for sure.
All right, moving on from Saturday. I think we had a fantastic breakdown of Saturday games. I'm really glad Gino brought up that Tennessee-Michigan game.
Yeah.
Because it is a little head-scratching that maybe it's a little fishy, honestly, that Tennessee is just a 6-point favorite in that one. But going from Saturday's slate, which is, I think is going to be really fun, heading into Sundays that I don't think will be as fun.
You don't think it'll be as fun? Why is that?
Because, I'll just go through. Notre Dame, Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech blows them out of the water. Michigan State, Duke. That's a fun game. Because I don't think Duke's good.
I don't think Michigan State's good.
That's very bad. I had Davidson winning and going into the Sweet 16. Is fun. What was that?
The storyline is fun of Coach K, Tom Izzo.
Yeah.
For an hour, right? The other thing, we got to talk about Coach K for a second. Miami and USC were in an absolute battle, Jack. There's a controversial call on the sideline. I'm watching.
Terrible call.
They're showing Coach K walk into the arena with his wife holding hands. And it's like, now's not the time. Clip that and show it later. I don't care, man. I don't want to see Coach K with his wife. I would like to see the basketball that I've waited all year to see, the tournament that I've waited all year to see.
And Andy Enfield not getting a tech there may have been one of the most puzzling things I've ever seen. He was in the ref's face, absolutely yelling at him, making extreme. I'm glad he didn't get a tech because that would have really kind of impacted the game in a negative way. And you hate to see a coach arguing for the right call to be made to get the tech. But man, that was a good ending. So I poo-pooed Friday games. That was a good ending. And Charlie Moore has played over 30 games at 5 different schools, I think.
Charlie Moore is incredible. The way the guy glides through the court, makes some passes. I absolutely love the guy. He is delightful to watch, and I'm glad that Miami got him, was able to win a game for Larinaga. I thought that was a lot of fun. But he's played at California, Kansas, DePaul, and now Miami. So
what a mix. And then to keep poo-pooing Sunday's games, Texas, Purdue. Purdue's going to mop the floor with Texas. By the way, I'm going to go perfect. I'm going to have a perfect record on these picks.
I think you're sleeping. I think everyone's going to be anti-Texas. Texas is super talented, even without Trey Mitchell. They were awesome defensively against Virginia Tech. Played pretty well defending the 3-point line, and they found some ways to knock down some threes there. I'm not totally out on Texas yet.
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Does Texas have 2 7-footers? Didn't think so.
Oh, this is your classic. No, but does Purdue play defense? Yeah. All right. There you go.
Darn it. You got me.
They're a top 15 defensive efficiency, and they're top 30 offense. So I think it's got a chance to actually be a little bit of a contest, maybe more than people expect. A little concerned about Texas on the glass, the defensive glass, when Purdue's got some offensive rebounding opportunities, but pretty excited for that game because it's a small spread, and I think a ton of people are going to hammer Purdue.
Yeah, I can see your reasoning behind it. I don't fully agree with your reasoning, but and then moving on to the other side, Iowa State, Wisconsin. Wisconsin will mop the floor. I think Miami will beat Auburn.
No, I disagree with all of that.
You think Wisconsin?
I can't wait for best bets. Well, Wisconsin makes me like, I like Wisconsin. I have family ties to Wisconsin. Colgate probably should have beaten them. Like Colgate looked ass athletic for most of the game, and they're not athletic as Wisconsin. Wisconsin is like a slightly better version of Providence. They're Providence with like a National Player of the Year candidate. They're very lucky. They're not actually that good. I think the game with Iowa State's going to be super competitive, and it's kind of terrifying. Should be for Wisconsin fans. The issue is Iowa State's offense is so bad. Maybe look at the under there. But it's probably going to be a gnarly game. It's in Milwaukee, so I do think Wisconsin will win, but it looks like it's going to be a small spread. Maybe do they cover? I don't know. Wouldn't stun me if Iowa State beat them just because I think Wisconsin's pretty average.
Okay. So broke down all those games. Is there anything else you really want to talk about these games that we haven't hit yet?
No, I think those are – well, Houston, Illinois, I think it has a chance to be a really special game on Sunday because Houston – is a team that I feel like everyone's loved. They're all over Illinois. KenPom has Houston by 5 because KenPom loves Houston. KenPom also wrote an article saying you should pick Iowa to win the national championship because they're fun to watch.
Did you see his tweet about it?
Yeah, did you see which one?
Where he said, I meant Houston.
Yeah, that was hilarious. So we'll see what happens there. I think Illinois is going to have a better performance, but that's one that I feel like everyone's going to love Illinois. Should they love them, or is Houston legit? I guess my issue is Houston's beaten 2 NCAA tournament teams the whole season.
Yeah, and Illinois has shown flashes of being a darn good basketball team, but they've also shown flashes of losing like terribly. And they had no business beating that Chattanooga team. No business whatsoever. Chattanooga pooped the bed late, went scoreless for like 5 of the last 7 minutes. Just didn't look good. Illinois also looked really bad at points in that game. Andrew Curbelo, they went on a 10-0 run when he first checked into the game, but then after that decided to just wildly throw the ball into the stands every other possession. But then Chattanooga decided to do the same exact thing.
If you told me that Andre Curbelo was throwing the game, I would have believed you. No, it was that bad at times. Like he was making some boneheaded plays. When he's on, though, he's electric, which is why he's such a fascinating player. So we'll see, because the numbers love Houston. My eyes tell me that Houston's super overrated. Kind of hard to know which one is accurate until they play the game. So I guess we'll find out.
And here's my problem. I do it with Purdue. I also do it with Illinois. Can you stop Kofi Cockburn? That's the key. Houston is a really good defensive team. And what Chattanooga did against Kofi Cockburn was the second he touched the ball, 2 defenders just converged on him, and just that's why they got into foul trouble so early. They were just hacking Kofi, not on purpose, but they would just double him, and then all of a sudden they just would rack up the fouls. So before we move into rapid fire picks and our best bets, let's update our Final Four. Last podcast, you gave UConn, UCLA, Arizona, and Auburn in the Final Four. I said Gonzaga, St. Mary's, Tennessee, USC.
Okay. I will change to what I have in this other bracket that I've entered in multiple tournament pools, including one that we are in. It's Gonzaga. Oh, I hate it now. I'm going to change it. It's Gonzaga. We're going to go Gonzaga.
Okay.
Murray State, Arizona, and Auburn. I switched out Murray State for Purdue. I had Purdue in there. The more I look at it, the more I think Texas is going to upset Purdue.
All right. I like that. I'm going to stick with Gonzaga. I'm going to stick with St. Mary's. I'm going to stick with Tennessee. And because USC lost, I'm going to go with this is just going to be for fun, Richmond.
That would be fun to see. I don't see
that is subject to change and will change next podcast that drops Wednesday morning. So be on the lookout for that. National champion, do you still have Arizona winning it all?
Yeah, they still strike me as the best team. I think Houston, Illinois is going to be a battle for those teams, whoever gets in that spot. But yeah.
Okay, and now rapid fire picks. I'm going to give you the matchup, and then we'll give our picks. You ready?
Okay, go.
Lock in. You locked in? Are you sure you locked in?
Lock in.
You didn't do too well last time. All right, Gonzaga, Memphis.
Oh, we're doing the NCAA tournament. I figured it'd be NIT. I'll go Gonzaga there.
Gonzaga too. That was a good joke.
Thanks,
I'll go Gonzaga there too. New Mexico State, Arkansas.
Oh, I want New Mexico State to win. I don't know if I see it.
So you're going Arkansas?
Yeah, I'm going Arkansas.
I'm going New Mexico State.
Okay.
All right. Notre Dame, Texas Tech.
Texas Tech, I think that could be a blowout.
Yeah, I agree. Texas Tech. Michigan State, Duke. Baylor, UNC.
I think Baylor here. I think people are a little too high on UNC after Marquette win.
I agree. Baylor. St. Mary's, UCLA.
I think this is where they show the world that, hey, don't mess with us. St. Mary's, you're frauds. WCC, you're frauds. So
I'm going to go with St. Mary's because
WCC's actually looked pretty good so far.
Yeah, they have. Don't sleep on the WCC. Texas, Purdue. You just mentioned you might like Texas in an upset.
Yeah, this is an upset special here. Texas wins this game. Chris Beard says, don't forget about me, folks. He becomes the new Coach K, and they win the game.
And he says, we're here for another night so I can eat the spinach salad.
Has he been doing that?
Did you not hear his post-game press
No, I didn't
conference?
see the spinach salad. That sounds lame.
He goes, they ask him, what does it mean to win? Blah, blah, blah. He goes, I'm just really glad to be here for another day. And I was telling my daughters, they have some of the best spinach salad I've ever had. This was a post-game press conference after they just beat Virginia Tech.
Priorities.
Yeah. So then you got Texas. I got Purdue. Murray State, St. Peter's.
Murray State's going to win that game.
Yeah, Murray State might blow them out. St. Peter's is not good and got lucky. They give me shades of like Stephen F. Austin or Grand Canyon last year when like everyone was so high on them. They're like, this is the Cinderella this year. And then the next round they just get.
That's what I thought, though. I thought Oral Roberts last year was a fraud, and they won 2 games.
Well, you didn't have faith in Max at A-Smith.
Yeah, I didn't trust him, but
that's why I'm high on New Mexico State. I think that Teddy Allen is this year's A-Smith.
Yeah, because Teddy Allen shoots the ball 33 times a game. They could. Exactly. I hope they win that game, but we'll see. I thought Vermont should have beaten Arkansas. Came up just short.
Yeah. All right. Arizona, TCU.
Arizona, although I really like how TCU has played recently.
Yeah, TCU held Seton Hall to 40. We didn't even talk about that game because it was such a snooze fest, but they held Seton Hall to 42 points. I really like TCU too. They played Kansas really well down the stretch. They played them like 3 times in the matter of a week and a half and went 1-2, but played them fairly well. I got Arizona though. Houston, Illinois.
I'm going to say Houston. That's like a contrarian play. Nothing in my brain tells me that Houston should win the game. But I'm going to say Houston.
See, my plan coming into this one, I was going to pick opposite of you. So I'm going to go Illinois, but I kind of wanted Houston there.
It just feels weird. Like maybe the numbers know something. Illinois, Houston's good, aren't they? Like, man, they haven't played like anybody.
2 weeks ago, people were saying Illinois was a national title contender.
I don't know. It's a weird matchup for me. If they get through, I think they could give Arizona a pretty fun game. They played earlier this year, lost by 4 at home, but I think they could, in a rematch, could give them a fun one.
Michigan, Tennessee.
Let's take Tennessee here. I think they actually pull this one out pretty well because I think they're going to defend the post really well. They're shooting the ball well. They're kind of like Iowa, right? Where Iowa's coming in hot. I think Tennessee is way more, obviously now, way more legitimate where it's like, I could maybe see Tennessee actually making the Final Four.
Yeah, I agree. I think Tennessee wins this game by 20. I might alt spread that to mine. Okay, I probably won't, but
you should.
If it hits, I'm going to be upset. Ohio State, Villanova.
I like the Buckeyes. Yes, I do. I like the Buckeyes to pull the upset. Not the best performance against Loyola Chicago, but they've got 2 probably first-round NBA picks. I think Villanova is very, very solid, but I think a super talented Ohio State team with no pressure could find a way to win.
And worth mentioning, Ohio State's healthy for the first time in a long time. That was kept being mentioned in the Loyola Chicago game. But it is worth mentioning that this is probably the best team Ohio State's had on the court since the beginning of the season when they beat Duke. I like Villanova, though.
Yeah, well.
Kansas, Creighton.
Kansas, this probably, to be honest with you, that's like the second least interesting game of the entire weekend for me.
Kansas as well, yeah. Richmond, Providence.
We'll take Richmond. I'll take the Spiders. I think they match up really well with Providence. They didn't even play that well and beat Iowa. I also think the fact that they do have all the old players, as Gino was mentioning earlier, helpful, because at this point, like, they've accomplished the goal of making the NCAA tournament, winning a game. I think they're going to be pretty loose. Feels like they beat Providence and then get smoked by Kansas, and that's their run.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Richmond wins this game. I think Providence won by 9 against South Dakota State. South Dakota State did not play a good game. Providence put together a fine game. I don't think Providence, I was high on them all season, but I just don't think the Friars are like fantastic. And it's my love for college big men, dude. Like Grant Golden, the fact that he can step out, he doesn't shoot a lot of threes, but he has that in his arsenal. He has that in his bag, as the children say. It forces Providence, who don't have a lot of, I think E.B. Watson, or I think that's his name. That's their like big man, get him in foul trouble. Who knows? Iowa State, Wisconsin.
I have a quick prop for Richmond Providence I wanted to ask you about.
Hit me.
Over 4.5 times they show Chris Mooney's family on the broadcast.
Over.
Yeah, it's gonna be like 100 fucking times.
I think in the end of the Richmond Iowa game, they hit like 10 in like the final minute.
Yeah, they keep doing it. It's like, look, his wife is stressed. It's like,
did you see the kid drop the F-bomb?
No, that sounds fun.
They win the game, and I won't say it on the podcast, but the kid, you see clearly mouth say, "Let's effing go," right next to his mom. But like, good for the kid.
Good for them. Yeah, he'll be on the broadcast a lot again.
Iowa State, Wisconsin.
I'll say Wisconsin, even though I think Wisconsin's probably a fraud.
Yeah, but so is Iowa State. This is the first time they've cracked 50 points in their last 3 games.
There's no way that's right. Is that right?
I'm pretty sure they scored like 48 and 47.
What is that total going to be? I'm taking the under. I don't even care. Blindly.
Wait, real quick. We gotta figure out that line. I got you. Do not worry. It's at 124.
Yeah, I'm taking the under there. Wow, that's gorgeous.
Miami, Auburn.
Auburn, I think I love the way Miami plays. I just feel like the winning a game to me feels like their ceiling. I'm
going to go Miami. Just for fun. All right. And now your best bets. What we've all been waiting for. What Bennett literally only does this podcast for is these best bets.
Yes. This is true. Are you ready? I got a big slate.
3, 2, 1. I'm ready.
All right, we are going with Baylor Spread -5.5 against North Carolina. In that game, we're also going to take the under. It's pretty high, I believe. I want to say it's somewhere in the high 140s, and I like the under there. I think you can get it even at 149. So I like that under. That's a play for me. Texas money line over Purdue. Love that play. I think there's some value there. You get them as a dog. We're taking Tennessee spread against Michigan. I believe the Texas game will be tomorrow, so Tennessee is today, as is Baylor, North Carolina. New Mexico State, I think they might lose, but I'm going to take spread in that game just because there's a possibility. The issue is Arkansas forces a lot of turnovers. New Mexico State's not the best at taking care of the ball, but I think that one is maybe a more popular narrative, and people aren't noticing that Arkansas is not a great three-point shooting team. And New Mexico State really defends the crap out of the 3. So we'll put the spread in that one just for fun. We're taking Ohio State spread against Villanova, might sprinkle money line. We're taking Texas Tech spread against Notre Dame. We're taking the Wisconsin under tomorrow. And then one last one for today. We will take UCLA -3 or 2.5, wherever you can get it, over St. Mary's.
That was a lot. Are you making up for lost ground from last week?
It's a lot. So to recap, today we have the Baylor spread -5.5, and then UNC Baylor The under in that game as well. We'll take UCLA -3 over St. Mary's. We are taking Tennessee probably about -6 against Michigan. New Mexico State, they're plus a few points against Arkansas. And I think that's all for today.
Did you say Texas Tech spread?
Texas Tech tomorrow. We got New Mexico State today.
Yeah, but Texas Tech, you went spread -7.5, correct?
Yes, over Notre Dame. Right. So we'll take that one. Got Ohio State tomorrow. Wisconsin under. Wisconsin under. If we're looking at plays to throw all of your money at, a little financial risk, the mortgage play, it's the Wisconsin-Iowa State under. Iowa State might score 30 and win. That could be the grossest game of all time. So,
all right. I'm a big fan of Tennessee spread. I'd even alt line that up to like -10. I think Tennessee's going to wipe.
Look at you following my plays.
100%. I'm actually going to go play for play with you. I like St. Mary's money line over UCLA, so I'm fading you there. Yeah. Really like St. Mary's money line there. Richmond money line. So I got.
Oh, that's a good one. Yeah.
Thank you. Richmond money line, and then I'm struggling to find anything else in the round of 32 that like I really, really like that provides at least some sort of value. I like Miami to win, but I'm not betting it. I would lean it, but I wouldn't.
What about spread? They're probably like 7.5 point dogs.
Let's see.
You're lean to win. You're not even going to take your boys +7.
Ooh, +7.5. Okay, I'll go Miami +7.5. Those will be my 4 plays. It's Tennessee -10. Let's alt spread it to -10. We're going Richmond money line. We're going St. Mary's money line. 2 outright dogs money line to win, and Miami +7.5.
I like that for you.
All right. So what have you been doing recently? You want to plug anything you've been doing in your life?
Yeah, you can find all my work at Bennett Conlon on Twitter. Some stuff for Sports Handle. I'm going to have a story Monday on there where I'm resetting the bracket, talking to some college hoops experts about maybe how to look at betting the Sweet 16. So keep an eye on that early next week. Should be fun. Looking forward to a good weekend of college basketball and my 10 best bets or whatever it is.
Yeah, you did have a lot of best bets. Well, for Bennett Conlon, my name is Jack Fitzpatrick. Thank you guys for tuning into the DRF College Sports Podcast. Thank you to Gino for coming on the podcast, talking a little bit about his best bets for today, recapping some of it. And I'm glad him and I are both on the Spiders. We're feeling a little itsy bitsy today. We'll be back on Wednesday morning with a new podcast previewing everything Sweet 16. Maybe Bennett will share some insights that he learned from writing his betting article, talking with experts about how to bet the Sweet 16. Thank you so much for tuning in. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. 2 hours until first tip. Let's win some money. Let's win some things. All right. You guys have a wonderful rest of your day. See ya.